All right. Classical mat Pilates is the foundation of the Pilates method, developed by Joseph Pilates and outlined in his book, Return to Life Through Contrology. It consists of a series of precise, flowing exercises performed in a specific order, underlined specific order, designed to develop core strength, flexibility, and control using only your body and the mat. Circle using only your body and the mat. The original sequence includes 34 exercises, many of which are quite challenging and require coordination, stamina, and concentration. Why do you think I started with that before we talk about props? That's almost anti-prop.
Because you don't need props.
And the props should always get you back to stability without. So this is what I meant when she was asking the question. Once the kid knows how to ride a bicycle, my 13-year-old, I would never say, hey, Isaac, let's put your training wheels on for Saturday. And if you think of props that way, if you think of them as training wheels, then they should be taken away forever. I don't want you to think of them as training wheels. I want you to think of them as extenders. Hey, Isaac, on your bicycle, I'll give you 2 more tires forward and 2 more tires backwards. Now I've lengthened his bicycle. And that's why I got a little bit not picky, it's the wrong English word. I was very clear how I answered her question, right? Okay, so with that said though, props are fun. Was that ring class not flippin' fun?
Yeah.
You know, and when I throw in the ball and the weights and the resistance band, I'm not very good at the resistance band, that's not where I shine, but I know how to cue it and teach it. But it's not, I'm not great at it. The ring, we're symbiotic. I would love to have been in rhythmic gymnastics, that ring became one. All right. There's still time. I want to be a doctor and a dancer and a theatress. Stage art, I want to be all the things. Use of props in classical mat Pilates. Who would like to read? Anybody?
Sure, I'll read.
Okay.
While traditional classical mat work does not include props,
Underline that. That's what I said before.
does not.
That's what I said before we started our class.
As Joseph Pilates designed it to be performed using just the body, props have become widely used in modern interpretations of mat classes for several reasons: modification, enhancement, and accessibility.
So let's look. They modify. Modifying breaks it down, right? It can help break down to pre-Pilates. So under modifier, you can write pre-Pilates or break it down. When it comes to the enhancement, that's where we're moving from control to challenge. The enhancement is the challenge portion of it, right? So enhancement underneath, right? Challenge. The accessibility, I want you to write stabilizers. To be very honest, when you have, we're just working through a lot of open leg rocker. When you have the ring here and you're ripping the ring apart, I now feel it. I can roll back to roll up, rip. That's sometimes easier than free float kicking.
Yeah.
It's a stabilizer, right? So when I'm ripping it, this rip motion, I'm stable through my hips, right? So
that's probably why she was like, is it used to become easier on the body
because she felt more stable.
she felt stabilized.
Bingo bango.
Got it
But
now.
then you put the ring between, and you're
Destabilizing.
actually destabilizing.
That's right. And that's the challenge.
Love. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
All right. So,
Stabilizer, destabilizer, love it.
yeah, write it down. Good work.
Shona, I can't tell you how much I love putting abs in my classes now. I love it so much. I used to hate doing abs, and now I'm like,
Because you
so
get
we're
it.
gonna end with abs, guys, like usual. Now we're all like, and then when we're doing it, I'm like, everyone is so happy Dana's in her Pilates training, aren't they?
And then they're like,
And
yes,
I
we
do this.
are.
I do contemporary arms too.
Oh, I love
and they all
that.
hate it. I'm
Yeah.
like, do it.
I love that. All right, so let's look at the first prop. The first prop that gets introduced, I said there was a sequence to it, is the magic circle. I'm making like a little chart, you can too. I don't know why I didn't on the other one, but whatever.
And just before we get into this,
Yep.
this order, where does this order come
Well, yeah. The magic circle, you'll see that Joe actually used a ring. It was wooden
from?
though.
Okay.
Oh, cool.
And that's why, okay, so here, let's get into the history for a sec. The arc barrel and the circles, they came from, so you know, vats of like alcohol or like barrels.
Yeah.
That's where the arc barrel came from, cutting it in half. And what was the top of it?
Okay.
That is really neat. Cool.
Of course.
That's why the magic circle is the only prop that's considered classical.
So cool.
Which is why when I said at the beginning of our class that we took, I said, no prop is in Return to Life. So once you introduce a prop, it's no longer considered classical. But the magic circle would be, because there's pictures archival.
Okay.
There's not repertoire written, but there's pictures archival. And so that's why I only teach with ring too, because I like to stay true. Now, when I was teaching at Ultimate, I taught with ring, ball, weights. Because they expect a different, but like when I'm running a class, the only prop I'll ever use at White Oaks is magic circle. Because to me, this is legit. Great question. Isn't that cool though?
So cool.
So
Makes
we
It was such an ingenious creator.
could call like a classical mat class with still with ring though.
Queen classical.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
You can.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah. I wouldn't. I would call it clean classical with prop,
Right.
but you can. All right, so that's why it's the first. Magic circle. What is the purpose? It's a flexible ring with padded handles, also called a Pilates ring. I want you to write under here, when hands and feet are pressing into it, it is called pulsing. Pulses. Pulses. So when the hands are on the outside or the ankles are on the outside, when you're cueing, pulse the ring for 5 and 4 and 3 and 2 and 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the tension on the ring. When you're doing it with fingers, hands, you are always having long fingers. We never grip. Because let's just talk about it. When my fingers are long, I'm in extension. When I grip, I'm in contraction.
I can feel it,
Yep,
like in my shoulder blade.
yep.
Yeah.
And if you see someone gripping the ring, you say fingers long, fingers long, fingers long. Now, when the legs are inside the ring or the hands are inside the ring, it's called rips. Rip for 5, rip for 4, rip for 3, rip for 2, rip for 5. So pulses versus rips. Pulses versus rips. We're going to get into that in a second, but just write it down under purpose.
And when we say like rips and pulses,
Mhm.
is that like classical terminology?
That's right. You can say it differently if you want. But again, is it classical? Yes, but again, we're using a prop. So it probably came from one of the dancers. It probably came from Fletcher, I'm guessing, or Ramona, right? And the idea is when you're pulsing, it's not sloppy, right? So you start them slow, always control the challenge. Press into the ring, hold, and release. Pulse for 5, release, and 4, release. Then you can speed them up when you can see they can control that. Now, this is how you cue threading the hands in. You want to take your right hand or your dominant hand in, take a thumb hook, tilt the ring, thumb hook, reposition. Now, do you need to be that technical? No, but that's how they lock it. Otherwise, you'll see people doing this. It's a thumb hook. You do dominant hand. You could always do both at the same time. Turn it into position, release the thumb. Just so you know how to. And you're ripping the ring apart. That's why it's called rips. Rip for 5, rip for 4, right? So, what does it help with? It adds resistance, improves engagement of inner thighs, arms, and core. How can it hinder us? It may distract from proper alignment or cause tension if used improperly. I would never give an intermediate body a ring in the 100 unless I really trusted they were not going to hyperextend or they weren't going to get into tension. Because, and we did it in class today, but I trust you guys, if this is happening, they're stressed to keep the ring stable. And so these guys will be engaged too much. Remember, we want these soft. The length comes from underneath, not from on top. If my thighs are too turned on, I shouldn't have the ring. Right? The length comes from under.
Yeah.
So it can be a hindrance. All props can be a hindrance. All right. We're not going to go into the other ones right now. Flip to the next page. Why would we use props in a mat class? Well, number 1, accessibility. Who would like to read?
Sure.
Yeah.
Props make classical mat work more accessible to beginners, seniors, or those with injuries. For example, placing a small ball under the sacrum can help stabilize the pelvis during the single leg stretch.
So, when it comes to accessibility, it's stabilizing. We wrote that on the other page, circle stabilizing. It's not a training wheel. It's a stabilizer. And you have to use those terms so you educate your clients, because if they think it's a training wheel, then they'll treat it as a training wheel. It's not. You have to tell them how to use the prop, right? All right, feedback and precision. Who would like to read that one?
Okay, I'll read it. Props like the magic circle or small ball offer tactile feedback. Holding a circle between the thighs during bridge encourages correct inner thigh and pelvic floor engagement.
It'll also give feedback if you're doing it sloppy. This thing will be bouncing all over the place. And if you see that in class, you say, okay, everyone, those rings are going rogue. We don't want rogue rings. I've been in classes where they've popped out between their thighs. What? Slippery little sucker. It's like Julia Roberts with the oyster in Pretty Woman. You know? Really? So you've got to make sure that they understand how to use it properly. All right, number 3, here we go. Now we're into challenge and variation. Dana, would you mind reading for us?
Yep. Advanced students can use props to add instability or resistance. Example, placing the feet on a foam roller during shoulder bridge to activate deeper stabilizers.
There you go, Austin. It's exactly what you said, the destabilization.
I have a question, just because I've seen it somewhere, so I want to know if it's like an actual thing.
Yep.
I've seen the 100 before with the circle like under the feet, like here.
Oh, with
So
them
like-
resting? Yeah.
But like, why? No, like under
Up,
your
down.
feet, like this.
Yeah.
Oh.
So that you're like, oh, why? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yep.
I'm just curious as to why you put it
Mhm.
there.
Just for fun.
It's not my preference. It would be because people can't hold their legs low.
There. Yeah. But why do you need them to hold their legs there?
And
if
then
you
in
can't
that
have their legs?
situation, it's being used as a training wheel.
Yes.
And
Because
I
if
don't
you can't have
appreciate
your
it.
legs there without
You
it,
shouldn't be there.
have. Okay.
Yeah.
Good question. See how? Yeah, exactly. And there's no shame in that game. Remember, we're not here to get everyone to elite advanced bodies. We're here to make sure people can pick up their own shoes to put into the closet where there are 102.
Yes.
Not everyone needs to do the 100 like with their feet hovered off the mat.
Yeah.
No, it's not the intention. All right, teaching tools number 4. Instructors can use props to teach proprioception and correct imbalances. A yoga block under one side of the pelvis can reveal asymmetry in roll down. A teaching tool Just like we use the dowel, if I'm doing the roll up and I want you to put your head between the ring and keep the head between the ring, that's a teaching tool. Keep the head between the ring, keep the head between the ring, keep the head between the ring. I'm using it so I'm trying to gauge where my arms and my ribs are, right? It's keep the head between the ring. Same with in saw, inhale, exhale. Can you saw and make the foam brush the pinky toe? You can do that too, because now I have a visual and I'm not just bouncing off on a diagonal. It's a teaching tool. Big difference between a teaching tool and an enabler. You have to know the difference, right? You don't want it to be a training wheel. Teaching tool, teaching tool. All right, let's go to the next. When props might hinder a class. Get rid of might.
When props will hinder our class.
Props do hinder a class. Listen, I told you guys this. Well, maybe I didn't. I took away the magic circle for all of February and March out of my classes at the Grimsby studio. I took it away. They weren't being responsible, like taking away a lollipop from a kid. And when I reintroduced it, I did it to select few classes in foundations. And I was strict with them. I was real hard on them because they were getting so freaking sloppy. And what's the point? What's the point? And I know my cueing was on. Like, it would have been different if I was getting sloppy with my cueing or letting them get away with it. Then that's on me. If I just let them pulse for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, lower 5, 4, 3, 2, and then I wasn't correcting them, but I was for all of January. So I took it away. And now I introduce it when I want to. It's not common hat anymore, and it was common in almost every class, right? So you also have that autonomy to make sure people are controlled. So when props hinder a class, distraction from the core goals. Right? That's like we were talking about holding the ball in single leg circles. Well, the focus in single leg circles is stabilization of the hips and leg extension. So the ball is a distraction, right? Props can shift the focus from internal control and flow to external devices. Here we go, number 2, dependency. Overuse of props can prevent students from developing the strength and body awareness needed for the classical sequence. I mean, we've talked that to death, but in a good way. Compromise in form. If not used correctly, props can misalign the body or allow students to cheat through difficult exercises. Interruption of rhythm. Classical mat work emphasizes flow. Too many prop transitions can interrupt this rhythm and reduce the cardiorespiratory benefit. When I taught you that class, it did not interrupt.
No.
But I'm very good at teaching with ring. I'll be honest, I'm very good at teaching with ring. I've been in classes where, okay, reach for your ring now. Okay, reach for, no, it's right there. And hook the toes and put it down and right?
Or like, okay, sit up, grab your ring, lay back up. Like even that just is
It's annoying,
Yeah,
right?
I should just be able to grab it and keep going.
Yeah. So let's look at best practices for incorporating props. Start with the classical flow, then layer props in as, I don't want to say needed because they're not. What can we change that word to? Layer props in as, how about designed? Can we say designed?
Yeah.
I like desired or designed. Write in which one ever, because I'm going to edit this manual. Because you're doing it with intention, right? Oh, there it is. Use props intentionally, not just for variety, but to achieve a clear objective. Teach the exercise first in its pure form, then offer prop variations, takeaway supported. I was being too generous. Educate clients on why a prop is being used and how it affects the body. So let's go down. This is exactly what we're doing now. Remember, props are extenders. Write some thoughts on what this means below. When you have a prop in your hand, it's an extension of your hand. When you have a prop in your legs, it's an extender of your legs. Why do we want extenders? Because it's easier for the body to get into the shape with more length. It is easier for a tall person to get into elephant on the reformer than a short person. Length offers room to articulate. I can't say it more clear than that, right? So write down some thoughts so that when you put props in your client's hands, whether it's, I wish we all had dowels. Maybe I'll buy dowels. What time is Home Depot closed tonight? Maybe after this,
Probably like eight or nine.
I might go and just
Yeah,
get us all
Friday,
dowels.
Yeah.
So we have
Forget
dowels
what you
tomorrow.
said there. Props help with length, and length.
Gives more room for the spinal shape.
That's what it is, okay.
And you have to educate your clients to understand that. When I put a dowel in your hand, it is making your arms longer.
I feel like even sometimes, like, for people who aren't good with visual cues, like when you had Austin and I in that class, we were using the dowel to go back,
Yeah,
right? And you're
that
saying,
was
okay,
so good.
reach the dowel there, and for some reason, with just my hands, I don't get the same visual, but I'm like looking at the dowel going to a spot, and it helps.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
Well, it also, because you have something to grip, something to hold on to, it's something seen, it's material. When you're just out in the abstract air, you know,
It's like tactile.
it's tactile. Also, as a teacher, it gives you something to hold on to. So, you know, when I was reaching for your guys' dowels, don't let me take it. Don't let me rip it apart. Rip the dowel apart. Hug the midnight. Knit the ribs together as you rip the dowel apart. Your shoulders just got so stable because he can feel what it feels like to rip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why you use the word rip, because it translates. Okay. That's the only part of lecture I want to do today. Let's go to time check and questions. What time is it? 4:35. Okay. Questions on props. In your mat training, you will learn dowel, ring, ball, weights, resistance band, foam roller. I will give you access to videos that I recommend. It's not really used unless you're doing like fascial stretch stuff or rehab, really. And even that, I don't really like them, to be honest.
Are they more used for like private clients?
You can,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, but it's kind of like in a nice way. You know, when I was thinking about my Reiki session, I was having Reiki and I get a nice pillow under my legs. Unfortunately, in Pilates, you don't want them to deactivate. So a foam roller, it like triggers like comfort.
Yeah.
That's
Have you seen those foam roller exercises though, where you're
Like
like in
roll
a
it.
plank, you're like in a plank and the foam roller's on
Yes,
the
like,
seat,
what is
and then
that?
you like
Roll
pull
it,
in
yeah.
and roll it out.
Like
Yeah.
foam
I
roller.
personally like that on my body, but I like wouldn't want to use that for like a whole class, or like sliding out and in with the arms, and you're getting like
Yeah.
tricep,
I
or,
keep
like,
seeing that,
or,
like, you
these
don't need to
things.
buy a reformer, you can
No.
just use a foam roller.
Yeah.
I keep seeing
Yeah.
it for that,
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah.
it is cool.
Yeah, and I've had them with Monica. Like, she had a great class online that we bought when we were part of the comprehensive. But because most clients will see it as cushiony instead of resistance, that's the only reason why I'm kind
You have
of,
to be selective on who you can and can't
Yeah.
use that.
yeah. But there's 2 videos that I'll send you that at least you can get eyes on them and you can use them at
Yeah.
observation hours.
Did you see that there's some studios that require the use of props? I feel like you've told us that before.
Yeah.
Like
Because
you had to have a minimum 2 props. or
Yeah, because that's the clientele they're catering to. It's razzle dazzle. And again, if that's what a studio owner wants, and you don't feel that compromises you, like it didn't compromise me, I liked teaching with it. But me, myself, and would I choose that on the regularity? No. That would be the exception. If I was mayor of the city for a day, I would say you throw in a prop once a month to keep their cognitive awareness and just razzle dazzle, not every single time. And like when I started at White Oaks, I think there was 6 weeks before I even introduced the magic circle. And a lot of times people were like asking me, like, oh, are we not going to use weights today? Are we not going to use the prop? I'm like, no, we don't know each other well enough. I would say that. I'm like, we're in a new relationship. When we actually get into it and I see your body, it was the same as the first time I taught Savita at the Grimsby studio. She said that was too easy.
What do you mean?
She told me my trial, my audition was too easy. And maybe it was, but I said, that's the first time I've seen your spine.
Yeah.
And that was on a Monday. So I said, I'll give you a private on a Friday because it was a group class. My audition was a group class. A real class people were paying for. I didn't get paid, I don't think. I don't remember. But it was a group class. So I said, if you thought that was too easy, I'll give you a private Friday. And they gave her a private Friday.
See how that
She was
goes.
like, you're hired. But it wasn't that I needed to outshine. I like what I taught that Monday and I'll stand by it. But to a studio owner, she's like, it was kind of boring. It's kind of easy. Okay. So some studio owners,
Want that.
and